Hello and welcome to UK Horror Scene. I am Tony and they are intelligent, witty and incredibly pretty. The crew, strike a pose. We're in the room and we are hanging with the multi-talented writer, director, producer. He's written books, films, and he's designed the title for our show. Isn't he fantastic? Ladies and gentlemen, creatures of the night, David Chaudoir. Everybody, round of applause for David Chaudoir. I said it right, yeah?
Yes, I think so, Tony.
There you go, Antoine. See, look, we've got a French cameraman.
Yes,
a chap with a Belgian name.
Yeah.
Very good. So I only just learned that. I didn't know that. Just learned that a minute ago. Right, David, we'll just go straight in. We'll talk about your marvellous film, Bad Acid, which is currently doing the festival circuit. So, what inspired it?
I have always had a deep love of magic, and as a child obviously had tricks and things like that, but I was always slightly uncomfortable with this sort of magician as somebody who is, I suppose, a sort of look at me character, you know, and I think magic is, I mean, there were certain magicians on TV who I thought were particularly annoying, and I got interested in a branch of magic called bizarre magic, which is, it's something that was sort of born in Chicago in the 1960s and 70s, maybe even later, but it's presenting magic more as a story and more as a, very often supernatural. And there are a couple of exponents of it, one of this chap called Tony Andruzzi, and another chap called Eugene Berger, who was a big influence on Derren Brown. And through that, I got involved with a magazine of bizarre magic, and I helped create this with somebody who I've never met in the flesh, on the internet, on this magic forum. And I started writing, and I also was sort of researching stuff, and I came across a hypnotist called Anthony Jacquin. And Anthony Jacquin is a very accomplished hypnotist, and he, a lot of the magic community now releases books, DVDs rather than books. And he released a DVD on using hypnotism as a performance. And he's like the king of rapid induction. I mean, he could walk into this room and shake you by the hand and you'd be out. I mean, it's utterly extraordinary. Whatever you think about hypnotism, whether you think it's compliance or whether you think it's real or the trance state. Anyway, he put this chap under, and this young chap called Chris Harding, and then when he brought him up, he said, you're going to see a genie. And he said, you know, the genie's over my shoulder or whatever he said, and it's rising now, and Chris Harding was sort of laughing because he could see this thing in front of him. And then he said, oh, now the genie's got sharp teeth and long claws. And you saw him sort of react in the chair. And that was kind of the seed of the story, that I'm kind of interested in how you can sort of shift reality, and reading around ghost stories and things like that. I became very interested in, and I wrote another script about, I heard an interview with a doctor at the Bethlehem Hospital, which used to be called Bedlam, and she was talking about the difference between, I suppose, what one would call a nervous breakdown and reality. And she told an amazing story about when her grandfather died. She'd been told that her grandfather had died. She went up to her room and sat down, and the door opened and her grandfather walked in and said, don't worry, everything's going to be all right, and then walked out again. And that sort of sent chills up my spine. And the way she explained it was almost like a coping mechanism. So I've always been interested in stories, and you know, that is it real, is it a figment of imagination? Is it psychosis? Is it, I've never taken LSD, but is it, you know, something that you would see while having a trip? That was the first inspiration. Then obviously I've been a horror fan, you know, from ever since.
There's quite a few horror references within the film.
Yes, there are. Yeah.
Obviously with stuff that you're a big fan of.
Yeah.
I think mostly is it 70s films. I think there was a couple you mentioned before. And it is quite a trippy film.
Yes.
And I like the ambiguity about it.
Right.
Because I've seen this and Adonis and Aphrodite, which hopefully we'll get time to talk about later. And this is about a genie out of the bottle, and also it's like him dealing with his own inner demons and the desperation to claw back his fame and his once big name, which is nothing. Now he's turned into a sad man who's desperate and lost. So I know once you've written it, once you've come up with your inspiration, you've scripted it. How long did it take to write it?
I wrote it relatively quickly. I find writing a slog, I have to say. I do find writing, I have to make myself write. And I wrote that one relatively quickly, I think probably a week. That's a couple of pages a day. Sometimes you'll write more, then you'll go back and change stuff. And then in trying to get the film made, I'd written another script before this, and I was looking for a producer, and I found my producer Suki Richardson, and I sent her both scripts, and she's not interested in I'd written an 18th century ghost story, which probably would have cost a fortune, but anyway, she said, oh, I like this one, and then she started a process of saying, because I'd written it very much more as a Tales from the Crypt, with a very circular narrative about the drug dealer supplies him with LSD, and then at the end it's the drug dealer who you see at the end. I won't give anything away, but so she said, look, why don't you try other things, and then I came up with the idea that it was a slightly more circuitous route into how he gets the acid. But yes, you're right, in terms of 1970s films, I wanted to write something which had I think what I liked about the 70s films, and in films like From Beyond the Grave, which this one, there's a couple of things which are sort of borrowed from. I like the fact that they have a moral, they have a moral journey, that if you do, that it's, you pay the price for your actions and stuff like that. And I was also interested in the notion of fame, and at the end of it realised that sort of I've written a treatise on fame today and celebrity and stuff like that, that people are desperate for fame and prepared
it is very relevant to that aspect,
prepared to pay any price for it.
And well, again, won't say anything about it because we don't want to give anything away. Right, so anyway, you've got your inspiration, you've got it scripted, and then you've got your producer. I mean, obviously there's an awful lot of obstacles on the way, and a lot of people watching this, a lot of people that want to make films and don't quite know how to go, but maybe they've written their script. Maybe, how do you go? But what do you think were the biggest obstacles, apart from obviously getting your script written? What do you think were the biggest obstacles for you?
Money. Money is the biggest obstacle to getting anything made, because you have to raise, obviously. I wanted to pay people. From a sort of a moral point of view, I don't think it's right that people should be, of course people volunteer to work on things for free, but I wanted people to be paid. And also Suki said, quite naturally, if you're paying crew, or if you're not paying crew, you could be in the middle of a shoot and somebody says, I've got a paid gig, see you, and then you're left and your schedule goes to shit, basically. So raising the money is one of the biggest obstacles, and I did a different route. I know everybody thinks that crowdfunding is the sort of magic bullet, and I think crowdfunding is a bit of a busted flush. I think there's a lot of projects out there, and if you don't have a track record, I mean, if you're John Carpenter or Spike Lee, I think Spike Lee did it, didn't he? He recently, he recently went on a crowdfunding forum and raised £1 million or something.
But that's
Million.
Spike Lee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not you or I. So yeah, I went a different route. I thought I'd heard sort of things about crowdfunding not quite matching up to the hype. So I went to see a couple of small businesses, and one of the businesses local to where I live, they build hard drives for the film industry, for the TV industry. They're a data company, and I went to them with the script and said, look, would you be interested in putting some money in? You can use the film, you know, we can use it promotionally to say, look, here's your data drive, you know, capturing 4K images or something like that. So I had that idea. Then I also went to somebody I'd worked with. I work as a graphic designer in motion graphics, and I'd worked at an agency in Soho, and I approached them, and it was the classic story of the stars aligning, because they were thinking of doing film, doing dramas and things like that, and they would just have this embryonic idea. And I said, look, I've got half of the money covered by this tech company. Do you fancy going, you know, putting out the other half? And Tom, the executive producer, said, yeah, fine. Unbeknownst to me, the other money dropped out. So I still had to find 50%. So the crowdfunding is me badgering friends and family, and I had a very lucky donation from a chap in Canada, but I think in total sort of spontaneous giving was probably 2%. So anybody who wants to, you know, raise money, it's tough.
It's the hardest part, isn't
yeah,
it? Getting
absolutely.
cash.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us the budget of this? Or?
The budget was the actual shooting cost of this was around about 12. But then of course the website that you go through takes their 10% or whatever it is. So we were down then. The cameraman, the lighting cameraman who I'd worked with in music, I used to direct music videos, and he said, I'll do it for nothing. He volunteered it, so you can't turn something like that. I didn't ask him. He said, I'll do it for free, so which was very kind of him. And then through my connections from when I used to direct music videos and things like that, and I used to direct TV idents for TV channels, I approached another company. I thought it was fair to approach somebody who works for a company because they get a salary, and a guy called Rich Martin did the sound design, and I think it's his brother-in-law, Peter Diggins, did the music, so he did it for free. And then the post-production I did with an artist called Josh, who created the Demon. Josh George created the Demon, and another chap called Adam animated the Demon, and then I did some of the compositing. So some of the skills that I use in my career I could use.
Yeah.
To
Was it a long shoot?
It was 4 days.
That's
It was
pretty
4
good.
days, and what I'd recommend to anybody who's making a short film is to storyboard it. Obviously, once you've done a location recce, you can take some stills on your phone or whatever, and then I storyboarded every single shot, so that we had a blueprint to work with. And then it's also, it's actually a nice thing to be able to put a big black marker through another square and see where you are in the whole process. And also it's very, very useful when you get to an edit, because the person editing it, again it was Tom, the executive producer, cut it. He was able to look at the script and the storyboard and say, okay, we should be, this is the shot we're going for, and this is what he kind of intended. But then again, the editor finds things that you don't, and makes something more of it than you originally intended. Yeah, sorry, I'm crapping on.
No, please, no, that's what we're here for, to talk. That's why you're here. If you sat there in silence, it'd be an awful show, wouldn't it?
4 days, and then it took a year to emerge. So
was that due to post-production?
That's due to post-production. That's due to everybody being busy. Like Tom, the editor, as I said, he's got a boutique, I suppose, design agency really, in Soho, and he's been incredibly busy and he was cutting stuff. But he would come in on weekends or evenings and cut stuff. So that took a good few months for that to be edited. Then we had to wait for the grader, another chum from my music video days, a chap called Simone, and he offered his time for free. He just graded, he was in the middle, he was either just about to start War and Peace, so, yeah, the big book, and so he, I think we got in just before he started War and Peace, or just after, I can't remember. I don't think he'd seen daylight for months, but anyway. So, yeah, exactly. So he graded it, and then I've completely forgotten the question, Tony.
I've forgotten it as well.
Oh yeah, It took about a year, again, sorry. And then the sound design, again, waiting for people to be ready, because they could only start when the edit was locked down.
Did you find that really frustrating? Because you know you've got it in the can. God, that's Wally. He gets so impatient.
I brought a pistol with a silver bullet. It's rather big and looking angry. Actually.
He loves jammy dodgers.
Okay, all right.
Loves jammy dodgers.
So, okay,
Yeah, I think
toss them into the cage.
he loves them. Really big on them. Yeah, but was it really frustrating then, knowing that you've got the film and you just kind of want to get it out there and get people to see it?
It is. It has to be. I mean, because it's like now. I wrote that. When did I write that? I don't know whether I wrote that in 2015 or 2014. So it's a couple of years old now. It's fascinating now watching it with an audience, because that's a whole. You know, they say that a film is born 3 times or something. One on the page, one in the shoot, and the 3rd time in the edit. But I'd also say that the 4th time is in front of an audience.
Yeah. Right, questions from the crew. Claude, you got a question?
Is there a film that you would say, I wish I'd written that?
Loads of films, I think. I mean,
Top 3.
If we're talking about genre films, then obviously I'm writing horror, because I find. I went to a screening the other day with Madeline's film, and 2 of the people who worked on Bad Acid had a screening the other day, and one of them was a girl called Patricia Gupta, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, and another girl called Kyla Bruce.
And they were like really grown-up dramas, and I was thinking, my God, you know, they're like half my age, and they're writing this really deep and meaningful stuff. Madeline's film was a lot more playful
And funny and stuff like that. And I thought, I like to work within a genre and try and find drama or try and find comedy within that. So I'm obviously very drawn to people who write comedy horror, and I mean, it's extraordinary. American Werewolf was written by the director, his name is
John Landis.
John Landis wrote that when he was 20.
He was travelling in Europe, and he had been, he was working on, I think it was Kelly's Heroes. He'd hitchhiked to, I think it was Slovakia or Slovenia or something like that, and he was in a car with one of the crew in a military vehicle, and he saw somebody being buried upright with a clove of garlics around their necks. And this is in the 60s, and anyway, so he saw, and talked to the local fixer and said, why are they doing that? And he said, so that werewolves or vampires don't take the body. And he then, this was his inspiration, and I mean that script is absolutely, utterly perfect. I love the fact that it's British, I love the fact that there's humour in it and stuff like that. And what I also like about it is it's contemporary of that time. When you look at it now, yeah, I like Hammer and stuff like that, the Gothic stuff, but it's really fun seeing stuff shot in the 1970s with, and I suppose there's a nostalgia aspect to it. So if I'd written one film, it would have to be American Werewolf, or, you know, and then as I said, I'm a big fan of the films of the 70s and the anthologies. From Beyond the Grave's possibly one of my favourites because of the mixture of horror and humour. Yeah, so...
See, when done right, it goes really, really well together, like American Werewolf, and the humour doesn't detract from the horror.
No, because you play it straight.
Yeah,
if the drama is played straight, the humour is... Yes, there were jokes in it, and I'm not a joke writer, I write quite dry stuff, but I think that humour is a release valve as well. Even in, you know, if you go to a contemporary horror film, a real big hit like The Conjuring or something, after a big shot, people in the audience naturally laugh because they're kind of reassuring themselves that everything's all right.
Yeah.
So I think humour and horror are good bedfellows because they, you know, one plays off the other, but I think you've got to play the horror straight. You've got to take it seriously. And then you've also got to take the humour seriously. You know, as I said, I can't write jokes, I don't do slapstick or anything. So the humour that I had came out of the character, the fact that he's such a narcissist and so inward looking and is completely oblivious to everyone around him. So.
And it does work really well. Ivan, question?
Mr. Mirabille, 5 years in a row. Ivan Trooper. I was just wondering, as I really do love that artwork there, and I was just picturing in my head, would you ever think about like looking at an artwork in a gallery, for instance, and then getting a movie inspiration from that?
I've never thought about adapting anything in that way. I've never thought, wow, I could, you know, look at that and that's a great story. I mean, again, as a child, there was a book, I think it was called The Hamlin Book of Horror.
And before I'd ever even watched a horror film, I used to go into W.H. Smith's and sit on the floor and look at these images and think, my God, you know, this is extraordinary, and that kind of fueled my interest in horror before I even knew what the stories were. You know, whether it was monsters or salacious pictures of half-naked women or something like that with a vampire over them or something like that. It seemed to be that there was this whole other world in this book, and that kind of, I think that's fed my interest in watching these films as a teenager in the 1970s, staying up late. There was, in the 1970s, there was a double bill on BBC Two. They'd show an RKO or like a Universal, like the Frankensteins and stuff like that. And then they would show a much more contemporary one, a contemporary film after that. So pictures indirectly.
And we'll finish with Antoine, because of the Belgian name, we'll finish the last question with the French cameraman.
Bonjour, Antoine, photographer, cameraman. My question will be about your location. You said it was cancelled in last minute, like 24 hours before. What would be your best advice for anyone in the same situation?
Yeah, we're talking about the other film, which is Adonis and Aphrodite, as opposed to this one. These ones were all locked down, the locations were all pre-booked. This was a no-budget film that I was paying for a cameraman to turn up on a Saturday. Madeline was coming down on the train, she had to leave her house like 5 in the morning or something. And I would say, if you can, you've just got all small budget filmmakers or low budget filmmakers, you've just got to be completely flexible. And whatever vision you have in your head, it's like when I wrote this was a completely different character than has appeared on screen and is inspired by the actor's performance and the locations that I found. And you have to ditch what you wrote largely and say, what can you work with now? And when the art therapy room, when I lost that, it was in a school and there was problems with chaperoning because it was a public school. And I thought, where the bloody hell else could she be? What have I got? What's at my disposal? And I got in the car and just drove around where I live within 5 miles, and I literally went down the road and stopped at the Abbey, and I thought maybe she could be working in a library. Maybe it's a prison library, because these monks built a library there. So I went to see the library, and it was way too plush to be a prison library.
I looked out the window, and there's this fantastic old greenhouse, massive old thing. But and that you've just got to be flexible. Yeah, okay. If the location dies that day, there's not much you can do.
That was actually a blessing in disguise, though, because it turned out to be a fantastic location.
Yeah, because I then
suited it.
Yeah, I mean,
really suited it.
On the day, I spoke to Madeline and said, could we start with you plucking this? And obviously it fits into the whole idea of death and renewal and stuff like that, and paganism and the most extraordinary thing was that was shot in December, and it was like -2 or something, and there was an orange tree with fruit on it, and then I thought, there's a fruit on there which is orange, so I gave her a badge which was orange, a circular badge, and then also in the script there's a reference to drawing down the moon. So if you notice it, you notice it. If you don't, you don't. But it's there. Yeah. And I thought maybe the badge could be because she's a special prisoner and she's earned some rewards or something like that. That's maybe why she'd be wearing something like that.
It's not rude, is it? Calling Greeks lazy. It's not racist, is it? Because they're not a race, they're a nation. It's ridiculous, isn't it? That's what they do in California, isn't it? Swinging in hot tubs and taking cocaine. That's for over there, not here in Barnsley. Mike had once been a shy man. Maybe it was the swinging that did it. But he was completely prepared to be lashed to this tree in their garden without a stitch on.
Mr. Chaudoir has brought a competition with him, so take it away, David.
Yes, I am giving away a poster by Graham Humphreys. Graham Humphreys is the foremost poster designer working in horror and outside in other genres as well. I first came across his poster on the box of the VHS case of The Evil Dead when I was a teenager, and it scared me shitless, and I thought that it was the most extraordinary bit of artwork I'd ever seen. And I was lucky enough to work opposite Graham's studio in early 2000 and had conversations with him, and I knew that I really wanted to have him create a poster, and I spoke to him about what we could do in terms of competition to give away a signed, Graham signed some posters, so I have a signed one of these with Graham's signature at the bottom in gold, and I thought we could do 4 things. One of them is to follow UK Horror Scene on Twitter. So you have to follow UK Horror Scene on Twitter. You have to follow me on Twitter, and the subtitle is now up on the bottom of the screen.
All the links will be on with it as well, don't worry.
And you have to do the hashtag bad acid. So it would be a hashtag, no gap in the middle, bad acid. And then the question, which was set by Mr. Graham Humphreys himself, was, in the film From Beyond the Grave, what is the name of the shop that Peter Cushing is the shopkeeper of? So, you have to follow UK Horror Scene, you have to follow me, details below. You have to put the hashtag bad acid, hashtag name of the film, no spaces, and then you have to give the name of the shop that is in the film From Beyond the Grave.
Right, you've got that? Do it, go on, because look at this amazing piece of work, and it really complements the film very, very well.
And I will post worldwide as well.
There you go.
So.
Does it get better than that? You thought this show was good enough, but no, just kind of raised the hype. By the way, thanks very much for doing our opening titles because they're fantastic.
Yes, yeah.
Really, really
That's
good.
my day job, Tony.
Yeah, and you do a great job of it as well. It's so good. Yeah, we're really pleased with that.
Thank
It
you.
just looks so much better than the titles I did. But I didn't have to try hard. Right, time is getting away from us. I wanted to talk about your book and everything, but we've run out of time. But he's got an audio book out as well. I'll put all the links up as usual below. Follow him, check out his work because it is absolutely splendid. Plug yourself away, David. Shamelessly plug yourself. Plug your work.
I think I've talked. I like to think that I'm a reticent Englishman who's done enough plugging for today. But yeah, go and see the film if you. I mean, I'm trying to get it into festivals. I've been getting it out on the internet to get it reviewed, and I've had some quite nice reviews.
You have, yeah, some very good reviews.
You know, if you live somewhere in the far-flung universe and there's a film festival near you, which doesn't cost a fortune, I want it to go on the festival circuit for, you know, for its lifespan of the festival, and then I'll see what it's going to do in terms of how it goes on the internet. But if, as I said, if there's a festival near you, drop me a line on Twitter.
Or just drop them a line. Demand they show it. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, David Chaudoir.
Thank you very much.